Hello everyone, welcome to my rug and welcome to a review of the Orient Kamasu 2. I've got it on my wrist rather than laying it out like I usually do because I'm going to get out of the way the thing I don't like about this. And I've mentioned it on the other video I've done where I compare it to the Ray 2, which I thought I was perhaps a little bit unfair because I was comparing it to a different watch which I prefer. So the thing I don't like is the bracelet. It is so rattly. Like, okay, if you do that with your wrist, it's going to make some noise, but just even doing that makes some noise. The actual bracelet itself, I prefer a slightly bigger fit, and it actually fits quite nicely. And I'm not even that bothered that it's a stamped clasp. And it does make a bit of noise, but that's not what's making the noise. It's the end links. They don't fit properly. And I've worn this twice now, and look how much it's scratched. The bracelet. I've got another watch that I currently wear more than this, and it hasn't got a tiny mark on it. This I've worn twice. Such a pity. I think they've really missed the mark on this. So that's kind of the thing that I don't like. So I was going to just get that out of the way, then I feel like I can move on and talk about, because maybe this is personal perspective. Maybe you're not going to be bothered about this, but I am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it on. I'm going to try it on this, which is a sort of army green nylon strap, and we'll see how it looks. Right, I've popped it off, and here we are. I think it works. So now we can move on to the specs, and I must, before I go any further, I have replaced the flat, uncoated sapphire with a domed. You just see the dome there. Sapphire with a blue AR, so that blue tinge you can see, you're not going to get me standard watch. So, specs. So, I measure this to be 41.5. Width, I measure 46 on the lug to lug, so it's quite compact. The depth is interesting because the bezel is slightly arched, so to the sort of edge of it, you're looking about 12 and a half, 13. But to the top where it meets the crystal, because it's slightly arched, I measure more 14 and a half. It doesn't wear big. And because of that short lug to lug, and because it curves down quite nicely, it's going to fit a variety of wrists. So I've got a 7.5 inch wrist, so it fits me. 41, 42 is sort of my standard for dive watches. Even 40 I can get away with. But because the lug to lug is quite small, if you've got to, I mean, that's the risk with a bigger watch, is not necessarily the diameter of the face, it's the lug to lug. Because if this overhangs your wrist, if I just pop it back on, hopefully you'll see what I mean. If the lug to lug overhangs your wrist, you end up with a situation where the lugs are sort of out here, and so the strap, rather than bending nicely round, it kind of sticks up. And I think that looks a bit daft. A massive watch on a wrist doesn't look daft. And because this is quite short lug to lug, I think a variety of wrist sizes are going to work quite well with it. So as I mentioned before, it comes with a flat sapphire crystal with no AR, and I think if they've made this effort to make the dial quite attractive, you might as well see it. There's something about AR coating on sapphire crystals that I think is entirely necessary. It has good loom. It's like a bluey green. It looks like Seiko's loom, even though you've kind of got this vintage patina yellow on the indices, which are applied really nicely. You've got day date complication. So day date, when you pop it out to its first position, always with a date you turn it one way, but with a day you just simply turn it the other. God, it took me forever to figure that out. I should have just googled it. Not on this watch, but on the first watch I had, which was also an Orient that had that. It has the in-house Orient automatic movement, which is very good. It's comparable with the Seikos and the Miyotas. And yeah, it comes primarily on this, which, as I've described, I'm not a massive. I mean, I like the strap. It's just too jangly, and it's the end links, isn't it? It's the jangly end links, and there doesn't seem to be a suitable replacement strap at the moment. Finishing on the case is nice. It's brushed with polished details at the top and bottom. So it's brushed on the side. It's brushed on the lugs as well. The bezel is 120 click. I'm not going to move it because I suspect I've got a faulty one, because although it lines up okay, the action is sluggish and dreadful. But there is a nice grey, because it's kind of a grey goldy type of dial. There's a nice grey accent to the bezel as well. Just a little bit of interest. Now, oh, and the loom pip is loomed as well, and the second-hand pip is also loomed. And they say it's water resistant to 200 meters. Difficult to test that. There's no ISO certification on it that I can see. The difficulty you're going to have with this, I think, is the crown. I'm just going to measure the crown actually. Okay. So, the crown is 6 millimeters, which in and of itself isn't too much of a problem. It just looks a bit small, but it's the size of it in relation to the crown guards. So as you can see, the top of it doesn't protrude from the crown guards, so you kind of sticking your thumb in, and the bottom of it does. So you kind of get purchase on the bottom. The teeth are quite nice on it, but when you sort of, it's quite sharp as well, the crown guard, so it's just not the nicest thing to operate. You don't, sometimes with crowns, I don't know whether you find this, but sometimes with crowns you sort of, oh, I'm looking forward to winding this, because it feels nice in the hand. This one doesn't. Now, as far as where does it sit, and I think this is the problem I had when I bought it, is I was sort of thinking, oh, this is going to be an upgrade to the Ray 2, and as I discussed in my comparison video, I don't think it is an upgrade really. It's just slightly different. I'm assuming on other models the crown action, the bezel action is the same as the Ray 2, which is really good. But you're paying £200 to £300 for this on a crap bracelet. You don't have an option of a rubber strap in England, on Amazon anyway. And then you start looking at some of its rivals, and this is where things get a little bit tricky. So the obvious rival is the Ray 2. It's probably going to be cheaper. Doesn't have sapphire. Doesn't really matter. Everything else is the same. You can upgrade the sapphire for less than it costs to pay the difference in the watches, and suddenly you've got a comparable or better watch. The bracelet will be the same, and you can get strap code watch straps for the Ray 2. But bear in mind, if you buy the Ray 2 on a rubber strap, the bracelet doesn't fit, which is something I've just discovered because I've tried to fit it. You've got a couple of Seiko 5KXs, which are okay. I haven't tested the straps out on that. One watch that I am going to be purchasing in the not too distant future is a rotary. I think they call it the Scuba, and it's got a Cyclops on it, which I don't like, but everything else about the watch looks spot on. And it's got it looks to have solid end legs and a milled clasp, which means it's going to be less noisy. The bracelet looks better. So, it is this. I always thought of Orient as the value proposition as far as mainstream watches goes, if you ignore the AliExpress watches. I'm not entirely certain that this one is, but if you can forgive it of its failures and its weaknesses, like the small crown, why they have not changed that, I don't know. it is a very versatile watch. If you want to watch on a good bracelet, don't buy this one. Check out some watches in store like the 5KX, and if you can find a rotary scuba, check that out. I suspect it's going to be better, but if you don't mind swapping this out to a strap, it genuinely is a really good watch. I couldn't necessarily recommend it. I don't necessarily think at this price point it is up there with its competitors, but it's definitely a good watch.